Welcome to the Wiesmann Luge World Cup round 3. It's the women's event this morning, and very nice conditions here in Altenberg, quite different to yesterday. Humidity still high, but you can see the sunshine. It means the ice can be kept a little bit cooler, and therefore conditions very much set for track records, perhaps. The top sliders will be wetting their lips in excitement at what can happen today. And you can see this 15 corners from the very top and 1,220 meters of ice. It has the Kreisel, the corkscrew corner halfway down, and then the big sweeping left-handers down the bottom. Very tricky to get right. Well, there's been a bit of action already this morning. We are joining the race a little bit late, as those inside the start house just going through final preparations. Of course, the Germans favourites to do particularly well here. As coming down the hill now, it's Summer Britcher, the USA, trying to haul in the time of Sandra Robacher. The Americans so far so good. We have had some crashes already this morning, exiting 9 here. Britcher in the lead by just 0.06 of a second. This is a 3-pressure corner. You must try and keep it as flat as possible. And a pretty good job of that, but look how fast she is through 11-12 on to 13. This is where the crashes have been happening. She deals with that very well indeed. 116.9 kilometers per hour is her speed, and she should hang on to the lead easily here. Yes, she does. 43 thousandths of a second as Summer Britcher into first place. Britcher shaking her head. There's been quite a lot of there's been quite a lot of holds on the track as different athletes have come down and sadly not been able to control the speed of this fast track. Emily Sweeney will be next, but we've had Katlikova, Zerner and Apoyoda all crash out here. So 1 point we had 3 crashers and just 3 had made it down. It was a 50% success rate, but so far we've had 9 down successfully. And leading the way is Summer Britcher. Now her compatriot Emily Sweeney, also of the USA. Not quite as quick a start as Britcher. Right now, just 100th of a second down, though, as they pass the double start. So we're halfway through this first run of the Women's Luge World Cup, round number 3. It's, of course, the aggregate of 2 runs, but it is very fast today. The sun's out, the ice a good 1.5 degrees colder than it was yesterday, polished up nicely as well, but it's already claimed 3 victims to a crash. Nobody hurt, which is good news, but you can see it is very, very fast, much faster than they've actually trained in and or raced in if they qualified through the Nations Cup. That was Sweeney coming down into 3rd position. Their compatriot Summer Britcher leads at the moment. Sandra Robacher had a good slide. 2nd place for her, the Italian. So far 13 sleds down of the 24. Well, there's the start, so you can see the take-in onto the main track. Sometimes you have the doubles and the Damen start at the same point. Not here in Altenberg. Just before the Amiga corner, corner 5. And that's exactly what Baturina has just gone through. So Baturina 44 thousandths of a second down. Heavy athlete, carries some good momentum further on down the track, so perhaps can get away with not such a quick start. Round through into the Kreisel, feet pointing together, Leaving her way through the air as aerodynamically as she can. 11-12, tricky changeover as you have to come down into 13-14, two very violent corners. And 115.4 kilometers per hour. The best will be hitting 117s there up the hill. And just over a quarter of a second down. The Russian team right now not exactly having the best start to today, as Katerina Katnikova came down, flipped out of 13 into 14, and now Baturina just behind Victoria Demchenko, who also had a few mistakes. Demchenko had a long wait after a crasher before her, and that can often put you off quite severely. You can just play with your mind a little bit when you're warmed up, ready to go. Eliza Kausa of Latvia next to take to the hill. And so far, two Latvians have come down, Zerna and Aparioda, and they've crashed. The other Latvian, Vitola, she sits in last position. So a really bad day so far for Team Latvia. Perhaps Kausa can tame this beast of a track through exiting 9. Just working her feet position there to drift over to the left to enter into this corkscrew Kreisel corner. It's over 360 degrees. 11-12, on and off quickly. And it's done well, it looks easy. The speed, 116.2, so not too much quicker than what Baturina was just doing moments ago. And she loses a little bit more time to Summer Britcher, who still leads, but is only 0.14 behind the leader in 5th position. And at least saves a little bit of face for the Latvian team. Now we expect a pretty big crowd by the end of today, as the team relay event still to come, which is something the Germans will be hoping to take victory at. They are undoubtedly the best in the world at the team relay, just because of the fact that they have so many big guns, and it is a 3-leg race. They can field Olympic champions in every leg. Now Miriam Kastlinger, former Youth Olympic champion. The start not magnificent, nothing to write home about anyway. 14th fastest start we've seen today. There's only 12 finishers so far, so that gives you an idea of just how much she has to make up from a weak start. Out of 9, down the long straightaway, or out of 10, down the long straightaway through 11-12. Up and on to 13, but not too high. The speed, can she let this fly? 116.8, yes, it's decent, solid speed. Getting close to that 117 kilometers per hour mark. And she'll be clawing back a little bit. Just a little bit, I'm afraid. She goes in behind Birgit Platzer, also of Austria, in 6th. Kastlinger in 7th position. Well, they put on a good show here in Altenberg. Ronnie Ringeth down the bottom, entertaining the fans with some normally music matching the countries. Erin Hamlin of the USA guaranteed her Olympic qualification with a 4th place in Winterberg last week. This may well be her last season. Olympic medalist from Sochi, world champion in 2009. Really has been a revolutionary character in women's luging, breaking the dominance that Germany had with 99 straight major event victories. And on the 100th at that 2009 World Championships, Hamlin came in and captured the gold, and suddenly the world of luge opened up and the German deadlock was over. Now Hamlin, 117 kilometers per hour, just steers up and on to corner 15 there. She's in the lead ahead of Britcher and stays in the lead ahead of Britcher by 0.03 of a second. So it's a USA 1-2 at the moment. We still have 7 sleds to come, of which 4 of them are German, and at least 2 of them in Hüfner and Geisenberger. They will be looking to set track records here, such as their ability. Track record is owned by Tatiana Hüfner. It's a 52.175. So Erin Hamlin's 52.53. Perhaps not in the first run. Conditions stay sunny and they crank up the cooling system. Perhaps in the second run, as we see Kim McRae of Canada take to the ice. Good start. Second fastest we've seen so far by McRae. McRae sits 8th in the overall World Cup, yet to capture a medal this season. But decent results, 7th and 8th, and just outside the top 10 on her sprint relay, or sorry, her sprint in Winterberg. Oof, McRae is late out of 12. Does she take a tap before 13? No, she avoided it. She is behind Hamlin at the moment, 0.27, and a little bit of bumps and heavy steering has slowed her right up. The speed's pretty poor, I'm afraid, and by over half a second in the end, she drops all the way down to 14th out of 15. So a lot of work for Kim McRae in the second run. Let's have a look at the start again, because that certainly was excellent. Now, Julia Taubitz, she's ready to go, wasting no time at all. So it's up to her when she wants to start in that 30-second period, and she hits it off the hill. Let's see just how quickly. 5.589, so the 8th fastest start. And she is probably the weakest starter of the big German names. Through 8 into 9 now, the long straight down to Kreisel. A little bit wavy in Kreisel, that's disappointing. This means she's taking a longer route around, and time will be ebbing away. Still only about 0.08 of a second in it. She's fractionally quicker than Hamlin. She can pull this back to 3 or 400ths of a second if she gets just the right line. Oh my goodness, make it more. She's up into first place, albeit by just 28 thousandths of a second. But Julia Taubitz, by virtue of great top-end speed, has given the German crowd something to shout about already, and I think there'll be a whole lot more to shout about in just a moment or two as the real big guns of German luging take to the track. Norma Log, head of the federation there, just helping her with her sled. See Tobias Bendel as well, walking around. Everyone has to do a bit of sled dogging, as it's known, with each other, helping each other out. As taking to the hill now is Diana Eitberger, a very powerful figure, and you'd expect her to hit it off the start well. She does, into first place straight away. Out of the Amiga into 6-7. 108, so over 1/10 of a second ahead of Taubitz and the rest of the field. Spots her exit well out of 9 and drifts left to get the perfect entrance onto the Kreisel, where Taubitz was wavy. Eitberger isn't, and looking pretty good. Brings her head up just to spot her entrance into 13, but lets it fly now. A little tap The 4:15, 1:17.3. Her speed's not quite as good as Julia Taubitz. Could she be punished for that? No, her lead was far too much. And by some 15 hundredths, a 52.34. She goes up in to first place at the moment. So Germany 1-2, then 3-4 with the Americans. Tatjana Hüfner will be next down the hill. And Alex Goff of Canada, then Ivanova of Russia, and then Geisenberger is going to be last to come down. Certainly the super fast conditions suiting the very best who can handle it. And you would certainly expect this pilot to do particularly well here. Tatjana Hüfner, Olympic champion, 5 times a world champion, and a start record right at the beginning. Goodness me, what a way to kick off her run here. So far, so good. All of the injury woes of the past are exactly that, in the past. Very smooth exit of Kreisel. She hasn't put a foot wrong so far. Perfect entrance onto 13 through 14. The speed much over 1:17, 1:17.2.14 in the lead, and that is quite simply enough to hang on. And she doesn't even lose any more through the final couple of corners. The Olympic champion from Vancouver, who is 34 years old now, comes from Saxony, and would perhaps call this her home track. Gives the German fans plenty to cheer about. And they still have Natalie Geisenberger to come. Before her, though, it'll be Goff and Ivanova. So a track start record by Geisenberger. Age is but a number. So too is start records, but a really nice number. Now Alex Goff of Canada bangs it out the top as well, but 0.122 away from Hüfner. That's a big margin in Luge, and surprising. Goff at one point was up mixing it with the very best Germans out of the start house, so how's she going to handle this deficit? Goff this season sits in 7th position overall, yet to grab a medal. Took 4th place in Innsbruck, so it wasn't a bad start to the season. Had to suffer 10th place though in Winterberg, 0.264, and most of that's come from the resulting slower speeds from the start. As she comes over the finish line, 0.281, she slots into 3rd. She's ahead of the other North Americans, Hamlin and Britcher. They managed a 52.53 and a 52.533. Goff 52.48. So only 0.05 of a second in it in the North American clash. But in terms of Goff being close to Hüfner, the leader, well, she's 0.281 behind. That's over a quarter of a second away from the leader. To Eitberger in second. Now she's 14 hundredths. 2 very dangerous customers still to come, though, in terms of the final order of merit in this first run. Tatjana Hüfner in the lead. Now it's Tatjana Ivanova of Russia. Ivanova has had a pretty poor start to the season so far, though that was a pretty good start to her Altenberg campaign. Big hit off the hills, second fastest start of anybody, and only 88 thousandths behind Hüfner. As she passed the doubles start through 9. Exit off. Looks relaxed, a little shift to the hips, 1/10 of a second behind. If she keeps this gap to Hüfner, she'll slot into second place down the bottom. Can she somehow get better top-end speeds than Hüfner? Hüfner was only hitting 117.2. 116.2. No, the speed's slower, and the gap grows. 0.177. She's slot into third position, Ivanova. And at least it gives a little bit of comfort to Albert Demchenko's coaching setup that he hasn't got things all wrong this weekend. Because, of course, Katnikova crashed out earlier on. It was a bit of a crash fest, I'm afraid, though. Katnikova, Zerner and Apayoda are all fine, but they all crashed in the center of the track. And pretty serious crashes in terms of they couldn't grab the sled again, so therefore couldn't finish and will not be going in the second run. So Ivanova there, tucking in tight, exit of 12 down to 13. She's certainly done a bit. The start by losing almost 1/10 of a second, and that was the second fastest start of anyone, certainly hindered her chances. There's only one person who could be up living with Tatjana Hüfner in the starts, and that's Geisenberger, the Olympic champion, the current Olympic champion, taking the title off of Hüfner. But the start not quite as quick, 5.505, actually not quite as quick as Ivanova. So she has a deficit to make up, though. It did not grow, it only shrank. Hüfner must have loaded the sled well and carried her momentum very well through those first few corners. Through the Kreisel now. Tricky one for Geisenberger to beat Hüfner on what is pretty much Hüfner's home ice here in eastern Germany. Just south of Dresden we are. But she's reeling in, Hüfner. Geisenberger still behind, but only 11 thousandths of a second. On the finish line, it's going to be Geisenberger into first place by 2 thousandths of a second. And convert that into distance, it is pretty small. Pretty small indeed, but what it does tell you is that Hüfner is relying on the bigger start and is not piloting this track as well as Geisenberger, and that'll be very comforting to Natalie Geisenberger to know that even moving from Bavaria over to the back garden of Hüfner, she can still out-pilot her on this ice. 11-12 changeover. So relaxed, very tall figure, best part of 6 foot tall. That certainly helps. You're allowed to weigh yourself up with lead if you aren't as big and strong as someone like Geisenberger, but you're only allowed so much weight. Well, it's Germany 1, 2, 3 at the top. Ivanova, the Russian, in 4th position there. Alex Goff pretty good, slotting in 5th, and another German before the Americans, who had such a great weekend last weekend, slot in 7th and 8th. Victoria Demchenko will be disappointed with 15th, but no one will be as disappointed as the 3 women who did not finish and will not go. Welcome back to Altenberg, Germany, where we have had the first run of the women's, and we're going to have a little look back at what happened. We missed some of the action. I'm afraid it wasn't all good action either, as Apayoda of Latvia, one of the early start draws, came down the hill on what is very quick ice. Much quicker than they had trained on. Nice sunny day. The cooling system cranking it down. Much colder than it has been, making it harder, thus faster. Well, coming down picking up speed all the while. And then coming out of Kreisel, just dropped off the end of Kreisel into 11.12 and flips off the end of 12. The speed just too great and entering just too late. She hangs on to the sled. In theory, she could flip on the sled over and make a stab at coming down, but I don't think she's going to bother. The Ice Meister down the bottom there just helping her with her sled as the 11.12 changeover. It's so quick. Tried to get back onto the sled through 13, but obviously in some discomfort and decided to call it a day. Now, Katnikova was the next to come down. Katerina Katnikova. It's always tricky to follow on with someone who's just crashed before you. Katnikova chasing the time of Eagle, Madeline Eagle at this point, who had made it down. And no doubt, when you've been up at the top and someone has crashed before you, it certainly plays on your mind a little bit if you're not super experienced. Katnikova will be seeing this ice faster than she's ever seen it before. Through the Kreisel. Exit of Kreisel, takes a heavy steer down the straight. That was a mistake and was so late through 11, flipped off the end of 12. And it's an almost identical crash, albeit looking a little bit more violent than the previous, with Appa Yoda trying not to hang on to the sled. Perhaps the right thing to do there by Katerina Katnikova, though the sled looked like it took a bit of a hammering. Something came off the sled as they came down into 13. That corner, well, she's at least clear of the sled, but it definitely had something pop off. Right there. Oh my goodness me, it's the Kufen. Oh, that's a horrible thing to get damaged. That is going to take a lot of fixing for the next race. She will not be sliding in the second run today, though. Did not finish with everything that she started with. Now, Ulla Zerner was the next Latvian to take to the hill. Sandra Robacher had made it down at this point and taken the lead. Zerner, pretty experienced pilot. We would expect Zerner to do a good performance, and was doing a reasonable performance, though a 0.12 behind Robacher as she entered into the Kreisel. Now again the exit of Kreisel just got it a little bit wrong, but made it through 11.12, really late into 13, massive hit before 14 on the wall that she was meant to be entering 14 into. A huge hit beforehand, and well, the impact itself was enough to send her off the sled, and that sled's going to start coming back at her pretty quickly. It's a steep uphill section at the finish here, so Zerner's going to have to get out of the way.
End of crashes sequence in 30 seconds.
There we go. Was a little late out of 12. Decided to take a steer, which is a big mistake down a straight. And her runners bit, and it sent her really late into 13. And look at that, just came slamming down out of 13 onto the opposite wall. And there isn't exactly a lot of padding under that suit. It'd be a pair of long johns and a bit of lead to help weight her up. No Kevlar there, so that would have been a bruising experience. Welcome back to Altenberg in eastern Germany, just south of Dresden. A lovely day here. Sun is out, the ice minus 2.2. And it's quite hard ice, and thus allowing for pretty quick sliding. Tatjana Hüfner broke the start record once again in this Altenberg track. This is what it's like from a bird's eye view. That's the Kreisel, the corkscrew corner over 360 degrees. And then down the bottom, these big sweeping left-handers where you have to try and harness the top end speed as best as possible. 117 plus kilometers per hour, maybe 118 plus in the second run, as the conditions here look pretty good for even faster runs in the second part of this World Cup. Now, we had 3 crashes, I'm afraid, in the first run, and the sliders that ended up going over, well, they will not be going in the second run. It was Yoda who first crashed, came out of the Kreisel a little funny. Seemed to come on corner 12 just a little too late, couldn't steer her way off, and in the end just flipped onto the side. That was one of the less impressive crashes, as it were, and that being a little more impressive. Quite a thump down onto the ice. And you can see the sled getting smashed up on the way down as well. So Katerina Katnikova did not finish either in the first run, and I'm afraid the Kufen on her sled snapped off. So there's going to be a bit of work needed on that sled before it's going to be race worthy again. But there was yet another, I'm afraid, and once again Latvian Ulla Zerner coming down through the 11-12 changeover, made it through cleanly. As you see, she tried to do a little steer, went over to the left-hand wall, came very late into 13, and that sent her really high, really late, and she dropped hard down off the corner and actually thumped the wall before 14, and the impact was enough to send her off the sled. It was actually enough to tear the comfort padding right off the sled as well. So the limp she was walking with afterwards probably suggests it was a not very nice hit at all. Now, Diana Eitberger is currently in 3rd place. The Germans at the top of the pile at the moment. Hüfner, the Vancouver Olympic champion, on fine form out of the starts, a new start record. And then Geisenberger, the Bavarian, again on home German ice, producing a particularly good run, getting great top-end speeds, though her start not quite as snappy as Hüfner, but she soon made up for it and took the lead by just a couple of thousandths of a second. So it's a virtual tie up in the first place, and they will add those 2 runs together at the end, and that's how we get our aggregate time. Lowest time wins, obviously. Geisenberger will be coming down last. That's her honor. So we're here in Altenberg, one of the fiercest sliding tracks in the world, just south of Dresden, in this lovely forest. And the conditions are absolutely perfect for optimum speeds on this track, and that was a little too much for some, I'm afraid, in the first run. 24 started the first run, 3 crashed out, so we go with 21 in the second run. It is Vitola of Latvia, Alina Vitola, who qualified through the Nations Cup, who goes down the hill now. Interesting to see whether Vitola manages to make it down in a better time. There is sun on the track. That could warm the ice up a little bit, but you have to remember this ice cooling system here is built for temperatures as high as plus 20 degrees Celsius. So if it wants to go colder, it will. Sun or not, the Ice Meister will be getting this as cold as possible. 115.7 for Vitola as she comes through the bottom few corners, and she'll be happy to have finished in one piece with 2 of her compatriots. Martin Strubetis there looking happy, Olympic medalist and now coach of the Latvians. One of his new pilots has proven her worth here in Altenberg, and currently leads the race. Stands a very good chance of getting a top 20 as well. Well, look at the start again. The start a little weak, and every 10th you lose at the top, you tend to have a rule of thumb that it's probably worth as much as 3/10 at the bottom in terms of lost momentum. Maybe not quite as much in luge as it is in bobsleigh. So controllable are these luge sleds in comparison. Now Kimber Cray of Canada, who is on for her poorest performance of the season so far. She's been up beside the top 10 twice this season, 8th and 10th, and then 12th. And she'll want to do something about that right now. Big start would help. It's a huge start, 5.575. Very good indeed. Takes 5 thousandths of a second off of her first start down the hill this morning. Now she was carrying a fairly big advantage over Vitola of about 13 hundredths. That's now 36 hundredths. So she's really racing away from the Latvian. Comes off reasonably early from the Kreisel. Steers her way smoothly through 11-12, and it's suddenly so sunny at times it's going to be hard to see the track. There is plenty of shading here to try and keep the sun off the track, and not quite so dazzling, but certainly no vision problems there for Kim McRae. Tremendous downtime, a 52.693, and had she done that in the first run, well, it would have been good enough for 13th position. So I guess not an unbelievable slide, but certainly a lot better than her first run by some 3,500. And if you're going to have a good one and a bad one, that's the way round to do it. So you at least leave this track with a feeling like you have started to learn and can conquer. Polish pilot now, Natalia Wojciechowska, currently 19th. Her advantage over Kim McRae is just 7 hundredths of a second. Start probably will lose all of that and more, I guess. Not quite, actually. She too is up to game in the second run, but it is just 1,000th of a second. So the fact that she was a bit slower, the momentum is slower, of course, and yes, indeed, by the second split, she goes behind. Exit of 9, that's it, starts to drift over to the left, which is where you want to be to get the flat line around the Kreisel. 11-12. So far, so good, though she was a little high, a little late through 13, 1:15.9. Expect to see 1:17.5 from the best there. Maybe quicker. That'll be our real indication of just how fast this track is running when the big German names and some of the other top sliders come down. Very smooth ice here. Conditions optimal for a chance at a track record, perhaps, for the very best. As for Wojciechowska, she slots into second position, just ahead of Vitola, Kim McRae in first. We've had 3 sliders. We have 18 more to come. Maciej Kurowski doing his bit of sled dogging to help the other team members out. Now Andrea Voiter next down the hill. She has 2/10 advantage, which is pretty big over Kim McRae. 5.65 the start, so lost about 700 already to the Canadian. Voiter loses another 400s before the doubles start there into 7-8-9. These left-handers, and spots her exit well. Ooh, almost starts to drift too early into the Kreisel, but no, it's okay. How's the wave? Well, not too wavy. It's the answer. Reasonably flat around the Kreisel. As those pressures come on, you have to steer and keep it flat. Out of 14. What's the speed? 1:16.7. Speed is really solid. She's reeling in McRae. She could do with another few hundred meters of ice, I feel, and I'm sure she'd agree. 61 thousandths of a second is the difference from Voiter to McRae. She can't quite reel the Canadian back in again in the end. But it's good enough to go ahead of Voiter Shishin and sit in second. Well, a very international crowd here. We've seen Canadians and Americans and Italians. Just about every nation that's competing has what looks like maybe a mum or a dad. So 4 sliders have gone, 17 to come.
Track is clear.
Madeleine Egel, our next pilot down the hill. 0.23, almost a quarter of a second she has on Kim McRae, who still sits in the leader's enclosure, waiting to be beaten. Egel starts 5.68. It's not brilliant, but she has a pretty big margin on Kim McRae to play with. Though that almost quarter of a second has slipped down to just 700ths. Out of 9, down the straight. She needs to drift to the left as she sees it. That's the right way to drift, but she's also seen her time drift away. She's behind the Canadian. 11-12. Behind, maybe her speed is impressive. 1:16.8, it's okay. There's only 11 thousandths of a second in it. Has she got some magic over the finish line? Oh no! If she hadn't have put her feet down on the ice, there's only 1,000th of a second in it. She actually was going through the last couple of corners quicker than McRae was. She could have reeled that back in, but no. Well, let's see what the director picks up here. The start, well, we know from the times that's nowhere near as quick as McRae. Exit of 9, little high, little late. That sent her over near the wall that she had to steer herself back in to the left side as she entered Kreisel. 1,000th of a second, extraordinary. That was really tight, and Kim McRae almost apologizes for still being in the lead. Katerina Baturina, next pilot down the hill. The Russian will be followed by Victoria Demchenko, and the other Russian who sitting in 15th. Baturina sitting in 16th. And of course, still have Tatiana Ivanova, who sits in 4th. So the Russians still in with a chance of a medal today. Right now, we're looking for the battle for getting inside the top 10, really, with these athletes. Well, the gap of time carried forward into this run is growing ever bigger. Baturina pretty much a full quarter of a second on Kim McRae. Then the feet come down on the ice coming into Kreisel. And that will wipe away some of her top-end speed. 11-12. We get a good idea in the next split off of 14 what her speed is and whether she can hang on. Only 35 thousandths of a second. The speed is not good at all. Baturina will slip behind McRae as well. There's no chance she'll catch that up by 900ths of a second. McRae is on a good run here. Some good air time for Kim McRae in the leader's box. Well, she had some problems out of 9. That's where a recovery had to begin, because she came late out of the exit. She was heading down to Kreisel. I'm sure we'll see that again. There we go. So, flopping off the end of 9, and well, not sure whether to steer or whether just to stick her feet down on the ice. That was the really biggest error she did. Coming down to 13, she spotted the entrance well there, but the damage was already done. So Victoria Demchenko, currently 15th, next down the hill. Big, strong girl. Imagine in a couple of seasons' time, she will be a world beater. 5.593, she's got the start, and she's really starting to gain the maturity on the ice. 0.265, an even bigger margin on Kim McRae, and that's off of a start that wasn't as quick as McRae's as well. Exit of 9 was spot on. Through Kreisel. Pretty flat. Little late off of Kreisel. Up and on to 13, and so far so good. 0.279. So extending her lead. Her speed is solid. It's not unbelievable, but she's certainly got enough to take first place. So that's a bit of a sloppy final straight. It doesn't count, of course. She's already passed the finish line, but things can go wrong if you relax a bit and don't concentrate. So Victoria Demchenko got shook about a bit at the end there, but all of the good work counted, and she's comfortably in first place now. Well, she went nice and early on to 11, and that allowed her to get off at 12 reasonably early and set herself up nicely for 13. So we say goodbye to Kim McRae. Demchenko, our leader. We had 7 sliders come down the hill. Our next slider, Youth Olympic champion Miriam Kaslunger from Austria. She'll be followed by Birgit Platzer, also of Austria. 52.763. Kaslunger's start tends to let her down a bit. And, yep, she's already gone behind Demchenko, having had a lead, albeit fairly slender, of just 300s. She's now 500s behind. Kaslunger, on certain tracks, a tremendous pilot. 600s rather behind, a little wavy through the Kreisel. Not quite as slick as Demchenko was. And mistakes are creeping in here, but it's all about the speed down the bottom. 1:17.1, and Kaslunger's got it. She's got the lead as well. It's a bit wild, but it's good. Sometimes wild can be very good. And applauded by Demchenko for taking the risks there. Miriam Kaslunger, off of that weak start, went behind and drove herself back into contention. It's a nice long track. It's exactly the kind of track that Kaslunger should be doing well at, being such a good pilot. Well, there's the exit of 9. She worked it to get onto the Kreisel well. A little bit of oscillation through the Kreisel, but it didn't seem to bother her speed. Sometimes it's better just to let the sled run a bit and try and gain as much momentum and top-end speed as possible without cutting the ice. Now, Birgit Platzer, her compatriot, the Austrian, takes to the hill to try and beat her junior teammate, 5.627, and she does straight away go into the lead. So the difference between Platzer and Kastlinger was only 0.05 of a second, which is a reasonable gap in Luge. And that was made up and more in the start. Well, Platzer exits a little late out of Kreisel, but deals with 11.12 pretty well. Her speed clearly not as good as Kastlinger. 1:15.2. No, it's quite a way down on Kastlinger. She's behind and she can't catch with that speed. Not a chance. Quarter of a second down in the end, and maybe just a little too much steering off of a slightly sloppy exit of Kreisel slowed her down at points where she should have really been accelerating away. Well, Platzer should be looking forward to Pyeongchang. She finished 5th there, of course, in the test event, so good memories of the Olympic track. And every track being different, every track having its nuances. It may well just suit her when she gets to Pyeongchang again this year. Well, some of the German teammates there just preparing. They are going to be coming out quite a bit later, therefore I don't need to be fully ready to go now. Liza Kauser has 86 hundredths, or 86 thousandths of a second rather, advantage over Mariam Kastlinger, and you'd expect Kauser to start well as well. 5.573, yes, already 17 hundredths now up on the Austrian. That's a big margin. Without really making a major error, that's a big margin to throw away. Very straight, down into Kreisel. And exit of Kreisel, spot on into 11.12. She's not doing too much steering at all here. This top speed could be solid. 1:15.9. It's not the best we've seen, but it is one of the better top-end speeds in this second run. Her 2/10 turns into about 13 hundredths of advantage, as Kastlinger was going quicker in the final couple of corners, but still enough to take the lead by some margin for Liza Kauser. Well, she seemed to get all of her entrances and exits spot on. No real errors from Kauser. 11.12. Maybe not quite as wild as Kastlinger, but the top end speed wasn't quite as good as Kastlinger's either. But that doesn't really matter. That big start and power out of the start house certainly counts, even on a long track like Altenberg, and that was enough to allow the Latvian to hang on. Now, Ralika Stramatraru, the Romanian. Stramatraru will be hoping to put in another solid performance here. Maybe even try and creep up inside the top 10. She's only in 11th place, so it's a very achievable result for her. And that isn't something Stramatraru has done too often. And got sent over towards the other wall. She needed to be towards the left, and she steers herself back on. That weak start Stramatraru has compared to Kauser is still costing her. Well, there's only 100th in it, to be fair, but it got so heavily outstarted. But look at the top end speed, my goodness me, that's the quickest of anyone. She's still behind. She might just get this on the line. No, she does. Stramatraru just darts in front at the last, and consistency is key, and her two runs both were piloted very well. You can only start as fast as you can start, and she does not have the same physical tools as some of the others, but great piloting. There's a couple of things she could improve on for sure. The start she could do with a bit more power, and having to pull on the Kufen there, a little bit of work to get her up onto the Kreisel. And then you watch here the third, oh, we're not going to see it, the third oscillation. Again, she was having to do a lot of steering just to get it off at the right point. There's Geisenberger next to Tobias Wendel. Emily Sweeney hits it off the hill, sits in 10th position, carries an advantage of 0.04 of a second over Stramatararu. Stramatararu 12th in the overall World Cup. Sweeney has had a brilliant World Cup so far this season. She sits in 3rd overall. A gold medal in the Winterberg Sprint says it all. She is on fine form. Onto the Kreisel, 1400s up. So casual, it looks easy. Oh, a little bit of steering there. Coming down into 11, just a confidence crisis, I think. Because the line looked spot on. Well, now the gap is only 0.07 of a second. The speed 1:15.4. Stramatararu was a lot quicker. This again can be very tight in the line, and it does not go the way of Sweeney. Stramatararu takes a big scalp there in the American and leads the race after 12 sliders have come down. We have just 9 to come, so Stramatararu guaranteed a top 10 finish now. Emily Sweeney, well, she had her feet down before here, before 11.12. She obviously felt she was offline, coming down into the 11.12, and that cost her. That was it. Just that foot onto the ice was enough to shave a little bit of speed off of her top end. And over the next 4 or 5 corners, just ebbed away. Sandra Robacher of Italy, one of the first successful pilots down the hill in the first run. 52.576 to slot her into 9th. Is what she did. Looking towards the top 3, it leaves her about, well, 2,200s away from the current bronze medal position of Diana Eidberger, who'll be coming down later. So we're all pretty tight here in the top 10, and there could be some movement if one pilot were to do a particularly good run. Robacher in the green at the moment, ahead of Stramatararu. Thanks in part to that massive start, 5.57. Now 1,200s her advantage. It is a big advantage to have at the halfway point, exiting Kreisel. Great exit of Kreisel. Runners pointing dead straight towards exactly the right entrance point on 11. And 117 kilometers per hour. Everything is looking really good about this for Sandra Robacher. Her speed is good enough. She's got enough in the bank to hang on, no matter what, and does. Stramatararu then, her moment in the sun is over. Sandra Robacher now into the leaders' enclosure. We'll have Summer Britcher next, then Hamlin. We're inside the top 8 when Britcher takes to the ice. Well, her start was magnificent, and not steering too much from that 9-10 changeover. The most hairy moment for her was really crossing the line. She almost started to go sideways there, just letting the sled run as freely as possible.
All right, let's do this.
Well, the first and second run times are pretty similar. And if that stays like that, then we might not see a track record today, but it certainly means we have very stable sliding to find the very best pilot. Now, Britcher, Summer Britcher, takes to the hill. Let's see how fast Britcher can start. Well, it's a magnificent start is the answer. A 5.556, quickest we've seen of anybody so far. Over a tenth of a second her advantage. Keeping good form there. Online very quickly, and Booty's pointing forward, just building on her lead at the moment. 11-12. 13, very low in 13. But does it work for her? Yes, it does. 1:17.4. My goodness, quicker speed by some margin. British 2/10 becomes 23 hundredths over the finish line, taking the lead of this race by a whopping margin as well, almost a quarter of a second. And Summer Britcher has now put the pressure on the next few sleds. Erin Hamlin, Julia Taubitz, Alex Goff, Ivanova also outside the top three, also about to come down now before the big three Germans will finish this second run off.
That looked like attack mode. That looked pretty good.
Yeah, that was a beautiful run.
Really held good form there, as she's just having a chat with Ronnie Ringeth, our track MC. Well, at the moment it's Summer Britcher leading, and we look at the Germans up inside the start house. They are yet to get the helmets on and pick up their sleds. And they have the honor of coming down last. Before them, we see Erin Hamlin, another American, the most senior American in the team, fourth in Winterberg last week. Let's see what she hits it off the hill. Not as quick as Summer Britcher, who was the fastest so far. And the advantage was only 300ths. All of that has gone and more to Britcher. Well, Hamlin already demonstrating how good a pilot she is. She's caught Britcher up again off of the weak start. Heads back, just manipulating her body and the airflow there to get herself up onto the Kreisel successfully. Lovely exit of the Kreisel, down and through 11-12. It looks effortless for Erin Hamlin, but the speed is key. Oh my goodness, a massive hit off the wall for Hamlin, and that lead goes and more. She could drop down to, well, let's see how far, hopefully not too far, only third position. And I have to say that's lucky, really. Lucky indeed that it didn't punish her a lot more. It was a slap that happened very late on, and she got through the finish line without too much punishment. Well, the three-time Olympic athlete, Olympic medalist in the last games, making a very uncharacteristic mistake through 14. Well, that exit of 14, she was trying to relax, put her head back, and just allowed the runners to bite into the ice and slam her into the wall without any time to react to it, really. Now, Julia Taubitz takes to the hill. The first of a slew of world-class Germans. Taubitz start, perhaps the one element that isn't world-class, and well, she only has 1,000th of a second over Britcher, who started very well, but now that deficit has been earned back again by Taubitz's brilliant piloting. .58 of a second. Again, Taubitz a little wavy through the Kreisel, as she was in the first run. Different from the other German girls who are holding a flatter line. But her speed was excellent down the bottom in the first run. 1:17.2, it's excellent once again. Similar to what Britcher was doing. And Taubitz will hold on to her lead just that much. Yes, thank you, Summer. A tiny amount, 18,000ths of a second. Well, all of these pilots we're seeing now have been there and won medals, even gold medals. So all of them know what it takes to get victory. And on a track like Altenberg, it's minimal mistakes. Very, very different to somewhere like Innsbruck, the opening race of the season. Sandra Robracher still in the winners enclosure. She's in third at the moment. Britta in second. Talbot's our new leader by just 18 thousandths of a second. Alex Goff of Canada, the final North American to come down. She sits in fifth position after run number one. Start wasn't great in the first run, but she did a 5.538 there. That's just like night and day compared to her first start. She's obviously had a good talking to herself in the toilets before she came out. Psyched up now. All that psych up, can she relax into a good slide? Just peeking over the brow of her chest there to make sure she gets the right entrance onto the Kreisel. Very flat, much flatter than Talbot's was. She's still got the lead on the German. The German hit 117 kilometers per hour, as that was a bit of a harsh take on to corner 13. 117.8. Goff just about doing the fastest we've seen so far of anybody across both runs. And 52.319 gets a full round of applause from everybody here. Brilliant stuff from Alex Goff. A bit more of the old Alex Goff there. 52.175 is the track record here, so still not too close to that. It's at 52.488 in the first run. Was bettered. Our second run time is bringing it up now, 52.319. 52.319, and yes, that's about 15 hundredths off of the track record. Maybe it's possible. 1500 isn't a huge amount for someone like Eidberger, Hufner, or much more likely Geisenberger to come down last. It is possible. That would certainly be an exciting way to finish if one of the big Germans were to do it. Then again, perhaps Tatiana Ivanova can pull something out the bag. She is in fourth position. She's got the lead on Goff from the first run. Her lead was only 0.04 of a second, but she hasn't lost that out of the start at all. In fact, she's done the fastest start of anybody. Typical Ivanova. She can just be magnificent at times, and again other times she can really do pretty badly, as she has done in the first couple of races, or two of the three races we've had so far this season. She's had one sixth place finish. That was a bit rocking and rolling through 11.12. It doesn't look particularly conventional. What's the top end speed? 116.7. Oh my goodness me. Ivanova is slower than Goff. She only has a few hundredths of a second in hand and hits the finish line. Goes behind Goff into first. Ivanova second. Talbot's is in third, and we say goodbye to Summer Britta from the leaders in clothing. Right at the top, a massive start. And things were going well through the Kreisel, but then 11.12, just exited 12, a little harshly, ended up rubbing down the wall before 13 and lost top end speed enough to give Goff the lead. So we have three sliders to come, all of whom are German. All are ready to go on German ice here in Altenberg. Diana Eidberger has a fairly comfortable advantage over Alex Goff, who was in fifth and has just beaten Ivanova. It's 1400s, that's the difference. Now Eidberger's start, how good is it? Normally pretty good. 5.506. It's solid enough to hang on to that lead comfortably. It'll only take one or two little mistakes in the early section, and she could slip behind Goff. The umpire band trying to drive her on here. Little rub before Kreisel. Feet pointing together though, and the exit, albeit a little late, is spot on, coming down to 11.12. Big, strong woman, Altenberg. She'll carry speed, no doubt, as she goes to the speed gun at 116.9, not as quick as Goff, but her advantage surely too big. And the answer is yes, it is. She did indeed lose some time as her speed wasn't as good, but she hangs on to what lead she had with 74 thousandths advantage in the end over Alex Goff as she crossed the finish line. So Goff in second now, Ivanova sits in third, Altenberg is in the gold medal position at the moment. And it's interesting to note, Altenberg went slower in the second run. Goff went something like 1700ths quicker in the second run. Ivanova went about 800ths quicker in the second run. Taubitz 600ths quicker. Well, Tatjana Hüfner, our next pilot down the hill, only has to go 600 or 700ths faster than the first run, and she could take not just the start record, which she did in the first run, but the downtime record. The Olympic champion from Vancouver, multi-world champion. She spacks it off the hill as best she can, 5.503. Well, that's about 500 slower than her first getaway in run one, but maybe she's down earlier. I think she is. She looks slick, 2 tenths up at the moment on Altenberg. She was carrying an advantage of about 1400ths coming into this run, so she's extending that and more. Quarter of a second now, she goes into the Kreisel. Flat line, perfectly flat, goodness. You can use it as a flat thing, a ruler even. It's a really solid slide from the most experienced pilot on the World Cup circuit. Third of a second the advantage, and her speed is lightning quick. 117.6. Hüfner lays down the law there. Third of a second over Altenberg, her junior teammate. And that is Hüfner of old. My goodness me. Not just starting brilliantly, but dominating the corners, doing what she needs to try and get the victory. Only Natalie Geisenberger now can stop this girl from Saxony pulling off another World Cup victory. Really great run early on for Hüfner. That was the difference between run one and run two. So fast. Top end speed, brilliant. And now the pressure is on Geisenberger. Look at the advantage. She only had 2 thousandths of a second. That's all she carries forward into this second run. It's as good as a dead heat start. So who's the better pilot? Altenberger's obviously been beaten. Is it Hüfner or is it Geisenberger? Geisenberger extends her lead by still a tiny margin, 4 thousandths of a second, with a fractionally better start than Hüfner. That's now almost 200ths. Still, we're talking tiny margins here. Hüfner, a 52.191. was her eventual downtime. That was 200ths of a second, just under off the track record. Can Geisenberger take the win and the track record to boot? Down into 13, it looks fast. Can looks be deceiving? We'll find out at the gun. 118.2, I think she could be on for a track record here, maybe by a couple of thousandths. Oh, she's done it, 52.036. The gold medal and the track record in these optimum conditions, sun and cold ice. And a great Sunday so far for Germany. 1, 2, 3, Geisenberger, Hüfner and Altenberger. I'm just chatting with Ronnie Ringoff, just saying how She was motivated to break the track record, and she had to put a perfect run together. The conditions were perfect, and that's exactly what she did. Brilliant slide. And in the end, she didn't just beat the track record, she really crushed it by quite a margin, you know. Geisenberger looked a little wild. It just looked fast is what it looked. And almost flawless there, just tiny tap on that Kufen. You see her right foot working to get her into Kreisel. Oh, really tremendous sliding. So Natalie Geisenberger, the World Cup leader, wins once again, looking on really supreme form. Hüfner, though, by 0.15, actually is a big margin in the end, takes second. Eitberger gets the bronze, which will help her campaign, perhaps bring her close to the top 3 in the overall World Cup rankings. A few crashers, though, who didn't have the best of days. World Cup leader, she remains the World Cup leader. And the world champion Tatjana Hüfner, though, smile on her face, because any strength or power woes she had from previous injuries no longer exist. She did indeed have the start record before she came here, and she beat it. So the 34-year-old, very strong, taking the silver. But there is the golden girl again, Geisenberger, with Eitberger on the right. The star in waiting, but she might have to wait a while, as Hüfner and Geisenberger aren't going anywhere quickly. Indeed, Eitberger gets herself up into third, as I thought she might, and Taubitz in fourth. It's a German 1, 2, 3, 4, when you had Sweeney in third before, and Britcher was in sixth. So things have changed around a little bit. Erin Hamlin still in 9th position. Kim McRae, well, she's gone from 8th to 10th off of not a particularly good weekend for her. Well, we still have the team relay to come here in Altenberg. Well, that team relay may well change a bit in terms of who's sliding off of this morning's results. I'm sure we'll see Geisenberger in the German setup anyway, who have to be massive favourites for winning it. That's it for me, Colin Bryce. Till later on. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.